It began last night at sundown, casting off into the book of life dashes of ink that flowed across many pages. Tradition. When I awoke, it was painful, acidic, like I was on a fast. To what end? I'm rarely sure, moved by the synchronicity into the wellspring of some divine pillars of action. Have I done something wrong? Who decides? Mythical stones, 10 days reflecting. What are the things? Who? Excavate and share, seeking to be absolved by whoever. Hear it spoken, this act of transposing words bled onto the page. His tongue into the fragments of any individual that we listen to. Do we wish? Always possible to ask, to be given more. Only minutes past sunrise. My alarm clock starting to glow. How do we choose a rhythm? Judge our own behavior. We simply do, or we don't, or we oscillate. Can we tell if we are straying? Painful to have courage. How do we trust and question our own unexamined? How can writing make us feel things? The audience was masked, appeared to be fuming, quick to feel, have I truly? They both fell in, beyond normal bounds, more drawn to an identity. Inside his shadow, I tried, bold, confident, while she would stand there, imploring him to give words that unraveled. Odd to look so deeply, started to shine in. Almost never anything besides kindness, wise enough to see. Mortifying, to which no one was witness, nothing wrong, and yet horror, revulsion, go for a run. Over a week since, I could barely, down to the Seine, across the Passerelle Simone de Beauvoir, Place Jeanne d'Arc, grapevines and ivy and flowers, a terrible stomachache. Moments earlier, casting off all my release, nausea, and I raced down Rue Pont-Scarme in terror that, humiliatingly out of my control, sweating and shaking, cleanse all evidence, punished or humiliated, inability to control my body, but I had harmed no one. I am an animal who, some illness, shame for things that do not cause harm, not being, and yet still able, on my own. Consider the reasons we allow reactions of another wreak havoc on our own sense. Yet we must listen openly, our own bedrock, to not be persuaded. Of course, sometimes misdeed in the eye, try to stretch confessions without concept, thought sloshing in the sea of memories. Shame can confuse culpability, tried to trace a thread beneath the glow of a street lamp, matriarch of poetry, full of ailments, layers of fraying glamour, the tragic odor, a continual state of needing. Pour down the cordial of the past decades, arrive here so broke, so luminously broken. Helplessness sometimes smells like a brine that is survival, vaporous, monolithic. Are we ever not responsible for who we become? Crumbs and velvet sheen. The recent past arcs backwards. The deep will flood names, absence. Forevermore, the pursuit of others who, danger of the drunken defeat. Power I have dissolves, not always. The tension before is ripe enough to feel magnanimously. Your emotional gratification laced into everything. Denial leads to a duller decibel of living. The potential hums at a low frequency. Bonbons of potential lovers. To what end? More than he wanted to hold, to fathom. Don't want the mercy of his chaos. An electric blanket, heating me, overheating, shocking and wounding awareness of the magnificence of you. Our responsibility to not harm, to not fling ourselves into an abyss where we will harm our resilient selves. I don't believe God is a word I write. Opportunity to give, hire friends to, artisanal English-style ale, even if nothing is, a month of training, into the hospital if someone was, because the previous summer, during a backpacking trip, a series of blue oil paintings was wanted to understand whether what I lived was. I agreed to go home with. After he treated me to a vegan dinner and an ice cream cone, didn't reject his wait. How far? More hesitant than decisive. I said stop as loudly as I could, and he then silently turned his back to me and went to sleep. I got up and walked in the dark just before dawn. Morning to a disappointment. A note on the kitchen table. He'd be out of town, a rare occurrence. An opportunity to invite my friend, a photo of my knees, patterned heights the day before, what he could do to to eat, actually, a kink I've only started to, in order for me to straddle, to draw all the constraints, jump on the chance as spontaneous, as free and as loud as we want. Some other time. Expectations are ridiculous, and yet bend, comply, capacity to cause grief inside. It's not his fault. Transported into teenage state of sadness. Try to not indulge. Only ask someone else. Attuned to the nuances of sensation, back to normal, maybe never optimal. That spectrum of states, pleasure that curdles, a numbing. Can it invite transcendence? Always possible, unlikely, loathing of emotional experiment on myself. I wasn't drunk. Measure the reverberations of emotion. Place them on a balance. Even discomfort and pain can become knowledge. Reach for an existence, points of connection, their absence, curiosity, respect for my mind, not wanting some, does it matter? Take him home like a beginning to conclude, to choose to have my body inviting in numbness. I don't need. Cultivate, imagine, falling asleep inside loving arms. Nearing the end, tonight at sundown, bottom lip still slightly bruised, serving something that would be equivalent to the sacred. Isn't a revelation more a guiding, the sphere into which to turn? What shifted in my mind, art, serves me rather than I, to dig and reach towards, make people feel, go beyond whether I am truly doing, shape the way I live. My belief exists. It hums beside art as a god, to see anything, act and choose and live, always lost, never. Can fucking serve not gratification but art? Yes, to, in the most serious, yes, to art, the question of how. Take this to sacrifice or specific or simply a wave, a light. The last most holy day, at sundown I began a fast, rinsed my mouth, already breaking a rule, Vaseline on lips. I know so little about these rituals. Looking in the mirror, how does my flesh, a purpose in vanity? Today is forgiveness. Have I wronged? How to make a sugar plum? Humility and hope. Finished with this day, can't I savor it? A gesture of, for what? One heightened modicum of suffering so many have endured. Whether my ass and hips are, turn flesh into what is healthy, what is good, What is in service to art? Goosebumps stop my elbows, dress with paisley swirls, blue tights tinged violet, pink where my kneecaps protrude, distraction, substance, lie down on the couch and do nothing. Is serving, is it not? From whom should I? Forgiveness.